Good morning. Asking you to come and sit down so that we can begin as quickly as possible. Well, good morning. Bonjour. I am Philippe Leclerc, the newly assigned Regional Bureau Director for Europe, actually for the last 2 months. I'm just back from a trip to Moldova, Ukraine, and Poland, one of the many EU member states hosting a very large population of Ukrainian refugees. And I'm very pleased to have a panel of variety from states, the European Commission, refugees, Ukrainian citizens, as well as the civil society actors. And we will be focusing on access to rights, in particular, on the basis in the EU member states of the EU Temporary Protection Directive, which was first applied in this context of Ukraine. And we will have two sessions, a first session on access to rights and also a second one on how the civil society in particular, in its big diversity, wide diversity, is responding to the situation. So from the private sector to NGOs, refugee-led organizations and community-based organizations. So I'm privileged to ask also soon our Assistant High Commissioner for Operations, Raouf Mazou, to have the start of this session. He will have to, this is the life of this forum, then run to other sessions, and I will be moderating the discussion with, on my right, Commissioner Ylva Johansson, the European Commission for Home Affairs of the European Commission, at the center of the policy of the Commission in response to refugees, Ukrainians, of course, but for all of them, and a very important support of UNHCR. I would also introduce Mrs. Alina Kokanko, President of the Ukrainian Voices of the Refugee Committee in Belgium, and who had to discover Belgium into difficult circumstances because of the situation, of course, of war that Ukraine is facing. Mr. Minister, I'm glad to see you again. I was just in your country and we met in Moldova, Minister of Internal Affairs of a neighboring country to Ukraine, not part of the European Union yet, but needing, of course, specific support. And I was glad to see the remarkable policies and welcome that the Moldovan people have provided and continue to provide to their neighbors, Ukrainian refugees who are living in Moldova. This is Irina Basyul, who is a program coordinator of the National Congress of Ukrainians in Moldova, that I had the pleasure to meet some weeks ago in Chisinau. I'm delighted also to welcome a new minister in Spain of Inclusion, Social Security and Migrations. Et j'aurais dû le faire en français puisque nous parlerons à la fois anglais et français dans cette session et vous avez la possibilité d'obtenir la traduction. I would also like to, j'aurais pu continuer en français, to welcome Mr. Marc Angel, speaker later on in the second segment, and Vice President of the European Parliament. We have the Commission, the Parliament, somehow the Council through the ministers. So we're very pleased to have this representation of the European Union and its member states. I'm glad also to welcome the Mayor Konrad Fiolek of Jeju. I have this difficulty of pronouncing yet your city, and sorry for doing it wrongly. But as an illustration of the role of mayors in receiving refugees. Your town and city is doing extremely well, and you will be able to explain how this is happening. Madame Isabelle Giordano, bien sûr, head of BNP Foundation and Corporate Philanthropy. Welcome as well. We also Mrs. Ola Menko, who is the CEO and foundation of the Institute of Poland and Ukraine. Again, coming back from Poland, sorry, it's important to mention how much Ukraine is doing from state and the civil society in particular that I witnessed. So government, municipality, civil society, both Ukrainians and Polish. I'm very happy to welcome also an eminent representative of the private sector and how the private sector can contribute with Mr. Tomasz Zahn, head of Group Task Force of Refugee Aid Ukraine of the Volkswagen Group. And of course, last not least, Madame Najat Vallaud-Belkacem, ancienne ministre et présidente désormais de France Terre des Îles. Donc, un panel très complet et je donne immédiatement la parole à Raouf Mazou, notre haut-commissaire assistant pour les opérations.
Merci beaucoup, Philippe. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, thank you first for this opportunity to share a few reflections on the Ukraine refugee situation and the topic of access to rights. Nearly 2 years have passed since the start of the full-scale war on Ukraine, which has uprooted millions, both inside the country and abroad. And indeed, as we meet today, there are over 6.3 million refugees from Ukraine globally, including 5.9 million in Europe. When I had the opportunity to travel to Ukraine, to Poland, to Moldova, and Romania, I have seen firsthand the suffering and devastation of the war, but I have also witnessed the extraordinary generosity displayed by host families, host communities, cities, and countries across the region. It is essential that this solidarity is sustained as the crisis unfortunately enters its third year and as refugees and host communities' resources are increasingly under strain. The Temporary Protective Directive enacted by the European Union in March 2022 and by Moldova earlier this year is proof that states can mobilize political will and act boldly in the interest of refugees. It is precisely the kind of swift and protection-oriented approach that UNHCR advocates for in all displacement crisis situations. Indeed, the positive experience and solidarity shown towards refugees from Ukraine should be built upon and be extended to all people forced to flee. While temporary protection has proven to be an effective tool to provide swift access to territory, protection, and rights for millions of refugees and displaced from Ukraine, discussions are now turning to what will come next, particularly as the application of the Temporary Protection Directive in the EU cannot currently be extended past March 2025. We at UNHCR strongly recommend that a coordinated and harmonized response among hosting states is implemented when the application of the temporary protection comes to an end, in line with international principles of cooperation and responsibility sharing. Without a coordinated approach, we risk undermining one of the key achievements of the response to the Ukraine crisis, the unprecedented and extraordinary solidarity of hosting states. Return is the preferred option for most refugees once the situation will allow. Until then, the response to date emphasizes the effective inclusion of refugees in their host communities so that they can access decent work opportunities, social welfare, medical assistance, education, and accommodation, all of which fosters self-reliance and economic contribution. UNHCR and its partners, mobilized through the Regional Refugee Response Plan, will continue to advocate for further investment in the areas of inclusion, such as language courses, job matching, and support to the enrollment of children in national education systems. The identification of the most vulnerable refugees, such as the elderly and those suffering from chronic and mental health conditions whose situation is deteriorating over time, remains a priority as well, particularly as the winter sets in. In this regard, continuing support for their inclusion in national social protection systems remains key. Finally, I wish to recognize the truly multi-stakeholder nature of the response, which is so central to the Global Compact objectives of responsibility sharing. This is reflected in the composition of the panel today: intergovernmental organizations, civil society actors, refugee-led organizations, municipalities, and the private sector, to name a few. All have played a critical role in ensuring that refugees from Ukraine have been able to access protection and assistance, and in strengthening the social cohesion, which has been remarkable to date between refugees and the host communities. Thank you again for this opportunity. I very much look forward to hearing from my fellow panelists and from the colleagues present here the important discussion that are going to take place on how to continue to provide protection and support to Ukrainian refugees. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Mazou, for setting the scene. As you have seen, and as I introduced the panelists, we have a large number of them, and we will have to be again disciplined in the contribution that each of you can make. But I would like to open the first segment of our conversation with the panelists which are with me on this table on access to rights, and ask in particular first to Ylva Johansson, the Commissioner, which has been at the central response of the legal and operational response of EU member states with the implementation of the European directive, how she has seen this response of the European Union member states and the Commission to a very sad and terrible event, which is bringing war back to Europe. And as we speak, the situation is continuing with a war situation since the aggression of the Russian Federation. So, Commissioner Johansson, on the response in particular, as you wish, either from the table. We'll gain a little bit of time.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here on this extremely important topic. The European Union is right now hosting 4.1 million Ukrainians. And this is, of course, a huge challenge, but it's also a huge achievement. And we have been, I thought that Putin is surprised of what we have achieved and how easily, so to say, we have actually been able to host all these Ukrainian refugees. And sometimes we are a bit surprised ourselves. And that means that we have so much more solidarity and so much more resources to mobilize, more than we actually thought that we have. It's important to point out that this unprecedented number of Ukrainians that we are hosting in the EU are not making us less generous towards others. For example, last year, the European Union gave international protection to almost 400,000 refugees. And that was more or less the same the year before. So in the last 3 years, we give international protection to 1 million refugees. We have also been supporting Afghans. We gave humanitarian corridors for Afghans in need, 47,000 directly to the European Union. We are right now in the EU hosting 7 million refugees. That means the EU are hosting 20% of the global refugee population. Germany is the third country globally when it comes to hosting refugees. And we are also the largest refugee donor, the EU and our member states, when it comes to providing more than 40% of the worldwide funding for refugees in low and middle income countries. So this is important to say, that the support for the Ukrainian refugees do not come with a cost towards others. And I announced today that the pledges for resettlement from the EU member states are going up. We will do a resettlement for more than 60,000 for the coming 2 years. So despite all what we are doing for the Ukrainians, we are not stepping down. We are rather stepping up also on other kind of protection. Just to a little bit personal note on how this started with the TPD. When the war started on the 24th of February, of course, we immediately understood, me and many of you, that this is going to have a huge impact on the European Union. After 24 hours, we had already 50,000 refugees crossing our borders. And that was, of course, something unprecedented. I traveled immediately to our external borders towards Ukraine. So seeing all these tired, frozen women and children mainly, afraid, crossing our borders. But what I also saw was this unprecedented solidarity. A lot of NGOs, a lot of volunteers just changing their schedule, coming there, supporting people. And it was really heartwarming to see. And then I realized that we need to do something extraordinary, because if all these people should go through the ordinary asylum procedure, we will clog up the system and other asylum seekers will be suffering. We need a specific mechanism for this. And we had this mechanism in the legislation, but it's never been used, the Temporary Protection Directive. So that's why, of course, to reach out to member states to make sure that we can have the necessary support from member states. And I proposed to them to activate the Temporary Protection Directive, and they unanimously decided so, only 1 week after the war started. And I think this was a really crucial moment to make sure that we could protect also other asylum seekers outside the Ukrainians, and giving this specific track for the Ukrainians. What was also important here was to see how we could do that, and that was very much by setting up the solidarity platform. In the beginning, the solidarity platform met every day, sometimes twice a day. And also with a very close cooperation with the Ukrainian authorities and with Ukrainian government. I must thank especially Olga Stefanishnia, because we were in contact several times a day in the beginning, but also to Denis Monastyrsky. Unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. Now it's Igor Klemenko. I had very good contacts with Ukrainian counterparts, and that, of course, helped to sort out a lot of problems that occurred, especially in the beginning. And especially we saw also with Moldova. Moldova was, it's not a member state yet, but Moldova took a lot of responsibility. And I would like to thank you, Adrian, for being here and for our very good cooperation. And we are, of course, are stand ready to continue supporting Moldova with all you are doing in hosting the Ukrainians in your country. And I would like to point out two things. With, of course, people fleeing from war are vulnerable. That goes without saying. And it was very obvious standing at the borders to see all the women and children coming. And a lot of people there saying, I can offer you a housing, I can offer a house for a woman and a child, I can offer a house for a family, and so on. But also, because I'm in charge also of organized crime. So then I also see that this is also a huge risk. If there are those that would traffickers that would like to take advantage of this situation, of course, there is a huge risk with so many people. Actually, there were like 12 million people crossing our borders in a very short time. So that was also that I reached out immediately both to Ukraine, to Europol, and to our anti-trafficking coordinators that I have on in EU and all the member states to set up a special action plan to prevent trafficking. And so far, we have been quite successful. We have seen very few victims of trafficking, taking into account the numbers of vulnerable women and children coming in a vulnerable situation into the European Union. But also, on the other hand, it's always a very common mistake to underestimate the strength, the energy, the commitment, the intelligence, all the resources that all the refugees are bringing with them. And I think this has been also important to see how the Ukrainians in our society, how quick they came into the labor market, are contributing to the society, are being part of these solidarity networks themselves, supporting others that come after them. We have already also more than 600,000 Ukrainian children in our schools. So I think this is the other side of the coin, is that of course you are vulnerable when you are a refugee, but you also have a lot of strength. And I think the key to success is to realize that and to make sure that people can use all their strengths and their capabilities. And I'm very happy that we have Alina with us here from the Belgian community, the community in Belgium, that we will hear from you later. The Ukrainians in the EU are not equally distributed among member states. Some member states are taking more responsibility than others. 1 million Ukrainians are in Germany. Almost not the same, but the second one is Poland. The member state with the highest number per capita is Czech Republic, a country of 10 million with 400,000 Ukrainians. Of course, this is a challenge, especially when it comes to housing, but also when it comes to healthcare. The capacity, of course, is a challenge for these countries. Belgium is not one of those with the most, but 75,000 Ukrainians in Belgium, and that's quite a number as well. So this is, of course, something that we need to take into account. And I have announced today additional funding support from the Commission to those countries that are taking the biggest part of the responsibility of hosting Ukrainians. It's important to also mention that we try to have, even though the war is ongoing and the Russian aggression, unfortunately, does seem to continue, we also try to have as normal relation as possible. For example, we are now at our external borders with Ukraine, back to a normal situation that we had before the war started. We have 250,000 people crossing the borders between Ukraine and the EU member states on a weekly basis. So there's a lot of people actually going back and forth. And I think this is important because people have the relatives on the other side on the border, for example, and it's important to be able to go there. We have extended the temporary protection directive until at least March 2025. We will find solutions after that if necessary, but we have some time to do that as well. And we will, as stated many times, we will continue to stand by Ukraine as long as it takes. The European Union has already provided 72 billion euros in financial support to Ukraine. We will continue to provide some additional financial support. We will continue to work together with Ukrainian authorities and to support the Ukrainian people that are living in the EU today. And we will support the Ukrainian path towards EU membership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Johansson. And we see how central the Commission has been in this response. And having witnessed so many refugee situations in the 30 years I've been working for UNHCR, this quick decision on the part of the Commission and the Member States has been extremely important for the refugees so that they can immediately or as quickly as possible contribute to their hosting society. Temporary protection, my last position was in Turkey, that country in 2014 for the 4 million Syrian refugees they host, implemented as well temporary protection. It's a very in specific situation, extraordinary tool that allows access to protection to provide and access to rights immediately. So that, Alina Koranko, as I said, you are one of those who had to flee your country and organize yourself quickly with other Ukrainian refugees in Belgium, one of the EU member states receiving many Ukrainians. Can you share with us what are, in your view, the best way to have Ukrainians contribute to the asylum society in which they live despite the war?
Thank you, Philippe. Indeed, I'm one of the representative of refugees from Ukraine in Belgium. And it is honor to be here with you. The community is established to be 57,000 beneficiaries of temporary protection in Belgium. The temporary protection regime has been good to us, the Ukrainians, and in the same time, going through the administrative system, our community faced 5 main challenges of required importance: access to the housing, job, education, social protection, and dealing with the trauma of the war while trying to maintain mental health and conduct normal life. The government of Brussels region capital and UNHCR came up with the model Bruxelles, which is no decision for the refugees without the refugees in the room. The refugees was given the central space to participate in the planning and implementation of all activities benefits refugees. In our case, 7 refugees from Ukraine were contracted to work daily with all ministry cabinets and head of administration, work as a bridge between Ukrainian community and government. On top of the Ukrainian refugees, community was tasked to manage all community-based integration activities to help 9,600 refugees living in Brussels. The government gave the required foundation to cover all activities managed directly by refugee community. That helped create Ukrainian Community Center with more than 38 activities. Every day, it's visited by 250 refugees, and classes and activities provided by refugees and volunteers from Ukraine and Belgium. We also manage 8 shelters, capacity of 700 residents. Besides this, we provide 5,845 nights in transit service for Ukrainians and now for other public. We organize mobile team referrals who support refugees with different tasks every day and every night. We organize community events and information sessions on integration thematics like job, health, social protection, education, housing, and mental health. So every day we continue work with the administration and NGO who have mandate support refugees. We, the Ukrainians, are pushing the European states to ensure the basic rights and decent reception condition, included access to the housing and fair asylum process, are providing not only refugees from our own nationalities, but also to those seeking international protection from other countries. Because it's a human right, and also because we need to avoid tension between national communities and preserve the social cohesion in Europe. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Lina, and thank you also for mentioning the other refugees, the other asylum seekers, indeed, who need international protection or temporary protection. And I would like to turn now, je voudrais me tourner maintenant vers Madame la ministre, d'un pays que vous n'avez pas mentionné, Madame la commissaire, puisque vous avez mentionné les pays au sein de l'Union européenne qui reçoivent le plus de réfugiés, l'Allemagne, la Pologne, la République tchèque et l'ensemble des pays qui sont voisins de l'Ukraine. Mais l'Espagne a tout de suite réagi également, mis en œuvre la protection temporaire. Et j'aimerais que, même malgré l'arrivée récente dans le gouvernement, et pour laquelle je voudrais encore vous féliciter, que vous puissiez nous dire également comment l'Espagne a répondu et surtout va continuer à répondre alors que les Ukrainiens subissent et continuent de subir cette guerre. Madame la ministre.
Bien sûr, merci. Monsieur Leclerc. Buenos días, señoras y señores. Voy a hacer mi intervención en francés, pero no me resisto a saludarles en castellano. Es un honor representar a España en este interesantísimo, importantísimo panel. La prise en charge de l'accueil des milliers de personnes déplacées par la guerre en Ukraine qui ont quitté le pays a, sans aucun doute, été l'un des défis les plus importants et compliqués auxquels nous avons été confrontés en raison de l'ampleur des chiffres, de la concentration dans le temps et des caractéristiques des réfugiés. Trois éléments ont été essentiels pour répondre à cette crise. Premièrement, l'impulsion donnée par l'Union européenne à la mise en œuvre de mécanismes de protection temporaire a constitué une étape très importante. Le gouvernement espagnol a décidé d'entendre le champ d'application de la directive sur la protection temporaire aux résidents légaux en Ukraine. En outre, il a mis en place une procédure permettant aux bénéficiaires d'obtenir des documents en moins de 24 heures à compter de la demande. Jusqu'à ce moment, l'Espagne a accordé une protection temporaire à plus de 190 000 personnes déplacées par la guerre, dont les 32% sont des mineurs. L'Espagne est le 4e pays de l'Union européenne en termes de nombre de protections temporaires accordées. L'une des priorités de l'Espagne durant sa présidence du Conseil de l'Union européenne au cours de ces 6 mois a été de poursuivre la solidarité manifestée par l'Union depuis le début du conflit en Ukraine. Ainsi, le 14 octobre, le Conseil des ministres de Justice et Intérieur a prolongé à l'unanimité la protection temporaire jusqu'en mars 2025. Si ces circonstances persistent, l'Union européenne a déjà commencé à analyser les solutions possibles, toujours dans une perspective de solidarité. Deuxièmement, l'accueil des personnes déplacées par le conflit a posé à l'Espagne, comme au reste des pays européens, d'importants défis logistiques, juridiques et même financiers. Le plus immédiat et important a été la nécessité de mettre en place d'urgence des ressources d'accueil sur l'ensemble du territoire national. 4 grands centres d'accueil, de réception et d'orientation ont été créés en Espagne, permettant aux personnes d'obtenir des documents, de contacter leurs réseaux ou d'être hébergées. Plus de 165 000 personnes bénéficiantes ont été prises en charge dans ces centres. Et troisièmement, la coordination de tous les efforts publics et privés a été la clé d'une réponse efficace. À ce jour, les enquêtes ont conclu que plus de 90% des citoyens espagnols jugent positivement ou très positivement l'accueil des personnes déplacées. D'autre part, l'engagement du gouvernement espagnol envers les personnes déplacées par la guerre en Ukraine s'est traduit par l'approbation d'un crédit extraordinaire qui a permis la couverture des coûts de santé, d'éducation et des services sociaux auxquels doivent faire face les gouvernements régionaux et locaux. Le soutien a été entendu au-delà des services publics avec, par exemple, un service d'information multicanal en ukrainien pour assurer et informer sur le traitement des documents et de soutenir des milliers de personnes. Plus de 100 000 demandes ont été formulées rien que par téléphone. Comme je l'ai dit, la gestion de cette crise nous a obligés à réfléchir de manière stratégique. Pas seulement à la gestion d'urgence des premiers arrivants, mais aussi à l'intervention à moyen terme en vue d'une inclusion effective et d'une intégration sociale et professionnelle dans la société espagnole. Nous avons promu des programmes d'orientation professionnelle pour le collectif ukrainien dont plus de 25 000 personnes ont été bénéficiées. La plupart d'entre elles, des jeunes femmes avec des enfants dont la scolarisation a été immédiate. Cette approche nous permet, au-delà de la première réponse de solidarité rapide et efficace, d'aborder l'avenir des personnes déplacées en Espagne avec plus de garantie, de force et de résilience. Merci beaucoup.
Muchas gracias, Madame Saiz Delgado. Et j'aimerais maintenant me tourner vers un État qui n'est pas membre, who is not member of the EU yet, as we have said, but has demonstrated extraordinary welcoming to its neighbors, as I was mentioning. And I would like Minister of Interior, Afos, you to describe how, despite not similar resources as EU member states, you have been able, and you continue to be able, to host such a large number of refugees in comparison with your population, and how we can, the international community, the European Union and UNHCR can continue to support you in doing this.
Thank you, and thank you for supporting us in our path to EU integration. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation and for giving me the opportunity to share Moldavian perspective and views on the sensitive humanitarian issues that demands our attention and empathy, the Ukrainian refugee situation. The challenging situation faced by our neighbors reflects the need of permanent international cooperation and support in times of crisis. To be honest, I was in some difficulties how to write my statement, from which perspective, from the perspective of former head of Joint Crisis Management Center, which I led for 1.5 years. And the government of Republic of Moldova established this center in the same day when the war started, under the leadership of the Prime Minister, or to write my statement from current position, which is more political and strategical one. So I decided to make a mixture of these two course of actions, and I stand ready to answer to your questions if in my statement I will not reach some points. The outbreak of the war in Ukraine has led to a massive and spontaneous influx of displaced individuals seeking shelter and protection in neighborhood countries. Thus, more than 900,000 Ukrainian citizens have entered in the Republic of Moldova since the beginning of the war, meaning a quarter from the total of population of my country. Almost 88,000 Ukrainians are still on the territory, with over half of them being minors. Since 24 February 2022, with the support of IOM, UNHCR, diplomatic missions and other international organizations, almost 2,800 foreigners from Ukraine were resettled in countries like Germany, Austria, Norway, Lithuania, Switzerland, France, Spain, Netherlands, Ireland, Latvia, Italy, and Iceland. The biggest number of refugees, of course, were resettled in Germany, 983, Austria, 580, Norway, 336. And in this regard, I would like to bring a big thank you to European Union, especially to Commissioner Ylva Johansson for permanent support and care, and of course to the big family of UN. At the same time, 1,309 unaccompanied minors were identified at the Moldavian-Ukrainian border, and the immediate support provided by Moldavian and relevant international organizations is crucial in ensuring their well-being and protection. The identification of unaccompanied minors also calls for long-term solutions, which includes efforts to reunite them with their families, establish guardianships arrangements, and facilitate their integration into host communities. Therefore, our common efforts and coordinated approach are crucial. I want to mention that in the next day, it was signed a bilateral order with from Minister of Internal Affairs and Minister of Labor and Social Protection regarding the unaccompanied children. So at the border, we had a very clear standard operation procedures how to deal with the unaccompanied children, and we have no cases of trafficking or problems with unaccompanied children. It was a big achievement also for the Moldavian government. This crisis has resulted in a significant increase of asylum seekers, with almost 17,000 applications registered to the date, comparing with 12,000 in 2022. And I want to pay your attention on 75 asylum seekers in 2021. You can see how this amount of asylum seekers is increased. The majority of applicants are Ukrainian citizens, following by citizens from Morocco, Russian Federation, Vietnam, and Azerbaijan. It is essential for us now as a global community to recognize the resilience and strength of the Ukrainian refugees in Moldova, and to acknowledge the efforts made by our government and citizens in providing a safe stability. A significant number of Ukrainian citizens acquire Moldovan citizenship so far, which may reflect their desire to establish long-term residency in our country and their integration in our priority. The international community must stand united and extending their support as Moldova, despite its goodwill, requires humanitarian aid, financial assistance, and resources for the education and healthcare for the refugee. It is not for nothing that Moldova won appreciation by being called a small country with a big heart. The Ministry of Internal Affairs' priority is managing the crisis caused by the war in Ukraine, particularly addressing the influx of displaced persons. These individuals have three options to legalize their status in Moldova: by applying for the right of residency, temporary protection, or asylum. The choice of legal status depends on individual needs, granting specific rights and obligations. As of 1st of March 2023, Moldova has implemented temporary protection with government-approved conditions by measures to facilitate integration in our society. So far, 25,000 identity documents have been issued by the General Inspectorate of Migration for beneficiaries of temporary protection, but they are pre-registered more than 33,000 persons, of which 7,000 for minors. This initiative remains a top priority for our country, offering practical support and protection to ensure the rights of social, medical, and educational services, as well as maintaining national order and security for these individuals. At the same time, it is important to highlight that 619 Ukrainian children go to kindergarten and more than 1,600 in schools, but most of the children are pursuing their studies online using the digital laboratories. Since March 2022, there has been a significant decrease in number of individuals registered in and accommodated in temporary centers opened by the Ministry of Internal Affairs due to the housing of Ukrainian displaced persons with relatives, friends in a long-term accommodation centers established by local authorities. There has been also an active use of green corridors by individuals displaced from Ukraine who transit through the territory of Republic of Moldova to EU countries. While temporary protection serves as a crucial response to immediate refugee crisis, it is essential to ensure that the rights and well-being of those under temporary protection are safeguarded and the efforts are made to find durable solutions for their long-term security and stability. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Fos. It's remarkable what Moldova continues doing with such a large number of refugees living in the country. And it's also very reasonable that at this stage, after almost 2 years, temporary protection is asked to be the response, and that those who are in your country not having yet regulated their status do so under temporary protection, or as you say, under asylum if needed, or as you mentioned also for those who would qualify as citizens of Moldova through naturalization. So thank you very much, and we stay with Moldova with Irina Basiul. So because it's very important to have, as we have heard, refugee-led organizations participating, being consulted, and actually being the engine often of the way refugees continue and restart their lives in countries like Moldova. Okay, so if you can share your experience that I have seen first sight.
Thank you so much, Mr. Leclerc. Dear colleagues, excellencies, I'm really glad to greet the speakers, the participants of the Global Refugee Forum, and especially this panel. And also would like to greet the representatives of the government of the Republic of Moldova at the Global Refugee Forum and at this panel also. My name is Irina Basiul, and I represent the refugee-led and community organization, National Congress of Ukrainians of Moldova. As you know, since the beginning of the war, of the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine, Moldova has welcomed more than 112,000 refugees who permanently remained in Moldova. For 2 years now, there has been a coordinated response of the government, UN agencies, NGOs, civil society, community leaders, and Moldovan citizens. They support to affected community leaders and Moldovan citizens in a refugee coordination response. NCUM, as a refugee-led and community organization which represent the Ukrainian community and support Ukrainian rights, has provided essential aid and support to Ukrainian refugees in the first days. Of course, government already presented some numbers and details about the refugee response, so I would like to emphasize on the refugee experience and refugee perspective and importance of refugee-led organizations in the response. So I would like to underline 2 key areas in which this is crucial. First, the importance of listening of refugees and engaging them in decision-making as stakeholders. Refugees are affected populations, are active, engaged actors who want to make a difference in the society, in their new community, and help to build a cohesive society. A refugee perspective can reshape the whole aid system in the country, from our experience in Moldova. 2 years ago, when the war began, we didn't know yet how to effectively work with refugees, as Moldova had never been faced such influx before. We quickly learned that the best way forward was to put refugees and Ukrainians themselves in the driving seats. We communicated with Ukrainian community representatives to better understand the needs of refugees and invited Ukrainian refugees to work in our team. Our first program coordinator, our marketing targeting managers, our workers, copywriters, and many other team members, they all were Ukrainian refugees. And they contributed their unique expertise and the unique point of view to help us to identify and really understand our beneficiaries. This approach allowed us to undertake a really targeted information campaign on employment, on temporary protection status, on refugee rights in Moldova, and more. Wherever we went across the country, on information sessions or job fairs or other activities that we implement, we have identified that when our refugees would come up to us and really reveal themselves, as soon as they understood that refugees and Ukrainians had come to help them, this became a key to our success in our work. The refugee perspective that our organization brings allows us to raise concern ideas from the ground up in the government and international coordination structures. This has allowed us for well-informed discussion around temporary protection rights, tailor-made program design, and constant feedback between the authorities and refugees themselves. So Moldova is currently the only place where the Accountability and Affected Population Task Force is co-chaired by refugee-led organization and community organization, National Congress. So the second key issue about refugees is to understand the positive role that refugees can play in the economy and in the society. And they are supported to do so. This is important. Refugees are keen to work and provide for their families, to socialize with their neighbors, and to contribute to life in Moldova. Independence and self-reliance are the key for the successful integration of refugee in any country. This is why we launched Robota Project, a platform for social and economic integration, where refugees can be supported in finding available job, receiving factual and unbased information, or obtaining legal assistance. Since September 2022, we have undertaken more than 2,000 consultations on employment and managed to have 130 refugees employed. As well, we supported more than 30,000 refugees and refugee individuals in our Refugee Help Center and evacuation program. We informed more than 2.6 million individuals about temporary protection status and refugee rights, access to other services and other related topics in Moldova. We even launched a TV show called Good Evening, We're from Ukraine that allowed to Ukrainian refugees and Moldovan population to understand how Ukrainian refugees live in Moldova. And the show had been seen more than 1 million viewers in Moldova, Romania, and Ukraine. All this,
Thank you, Irina. Just again, you're providing so many examples of let the refugees participate, let them decide for themselves, let them express themselves. So again, thank you very much for all this. We're in view of the time. Thank you. As we have other panelists on the second segment part, I would like questions from the floor to be as short as possible in their formulation. And so the first, I think we have the ambassador of Ukraine as on my list. It's not. Yes, Ambassador, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's not a question, it's an expression of gratitude to all of you who support Ukrainians in these difficult situations. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I would like to thank the UNHCR for organizing this event and of course for the tremendous support and assistance to Ukrainians uprooted by Russia's war of aggression. I also thank all the distinguished panelists for sharing with us your insights, best experience, contributions to the response. Your important work, dedication to action, and transformative approaches are a real source of inspiration to all of us. The EU landmark decision to activate the Temporary Protection Directive in 2022 has become a beacon of hope and relief for millions of Ukrainians fleeing Russia's war. We are sincerely grateful to all the countries that opened their borders, homes, and hearts and lending their helping hand to the affected people. You have really shown what it truly means to be human and humanitarian. In the spirit of the Global Compact, Ukraine will continue to foster the enabling socio-economic environment for safe, voluntary, and dignified return, safety and security situation permitting. The government is committed to ensuring a people-centered recovery. In this regard, we call upon the UNHCR and all partners to continue their active engagement in response in Ukraine, focusing on programs and policies that support resilience, recovery, and reconstruction, putting people and investment in human capital at the forefront. 21 months into the war, while Russia continues its relentless daily attacks on Ukrainian cities and towns, the displacement crisis shows little to no sign of easing. About 10 million Ukrainians remain displaced, including 3.7 within Ukraine and a further 6.3 million who have sought safety abroad. Clearly, to resolve forced displacement, the war must stop. And we will do our utmost to achieve peace, the peace that would prevent repetition of aggression and guarantee security and justice for Ukraine and the entire world. The 10-point peace formula of President Zelensky represents a comprehensive plan towards achieving this goal. We are grateful to all member states, UN member states, and international organizations who joined this initiative and call upon other countries to support the implementation of peace formula, including its provisions on ending forcible displacement. I thank you very much for this event, for this discussion, and I will listen very carefully to the questions and answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. And I would like to give the floor now, I think, to Madam Signe Rizzalo, Minister of Social Protection of Estonia, if, yes, she is indeed in the room. Welcome, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dear Ukrainians and dear friends of Ukraine, as a human being, I would like to say thank you to all the governments, to all the communities who opens the door to Ukrainian refugees, because the empathy and compassion is the only thing which differ us from the wild nature. For more than 18 months, Ukraine has shown extraordinary courage in defending its freedom and territory. The Russian aggression has had an extremely high cost for Ukraine's civilian population, including children. I would like to reaffirm Estonian government's commitment to support Ukrainian refugees both at home, in Ukraine, and its neighboring countries. Since the beginning of war, Estonia has welcomed over 35,000 Ukrainian refugees, which is almost 3% of our population. I am happy to highlight that Estonia has been successful in integrating Ukrainian refugees into our society. They enjoy the same social rights as other Estonians, and most importantly, over 50% of the refugees of working age are employed. Mental health services and community support to Ukrainian refugees of all ages has been another priority of Estonian government. To strengthen crisis preparedness, Estonia is building a comprehensive and cross-disciplinary mental health and psychosocial support framework in cooperation with WHO and other international organizations. We are happy to share our experiences. Employment and mental health support form a core part of our pledges at this forum. In Ukraine, we are supporting internally displaced persons directly through the constructions of housing. For example, we are currently building 4 houses for foster families in cooperation with Olena Zelenska Foundation. Through our NGO partners, we are providing cash-based assistance in Ukraine and Georgia and repairing and providing heating for internally displaced persons' shelters. Lastly, I would like to focus on Russia's policy of deporting Ukrainian children to Russia and Belarus and forced adoption into Russian families, an issue that seems uncensorable in our time. These cruel acts are in grave violation of international humanitarian law. We need coordinated effort, including with UNHCR, to receive and prevent the forced deportation of Ukrainian children. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. Very important issues you raise. I would also like to ask the last intervention from the floor from Germany, General Director Ambassador Deike Potzel. Yes, welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm here to underline that nearly 2 years into Russia's aggression against Ukraine that displaced millions of Ukrainians, our solidarity with the people of Ukraine remains unbroken. Since February 2022, Germany has provided around 840 million euro of humanitarian assistance alone in Ukraine and neighboring countries. Helping refugees is a humanitarian imperative. A majority of refugees and IDPs are women and children, and in line with our feminist foreign policy, their protection is vital. We are in full support of the EU's Temporary Protection Directive. It's a great example in the spirit of the Global Compact for Refugees for effective responsibility sharing. It ensures eased access to protection and services for millions fleeing Ukraine. Germany hosts more than 1 million Ukrainians and provided support through a whole of society approach. And we will uphold our support and our solidarity for the people of Ukraine, despite all the challenges, till the end of the Russian aggression. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. We were extending by 15 minutes this whole session so that all panelists can also speak. And I therefore also ask the Ambassador of Poland, who has requested the floor, to also make a statement or ask a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Director, and thank you for organizing this panel. Distinguished participants to this panel, Madam High Commissioner, Madam Ministers, just a few remarks. A lot of data has been already given here in this room about the way how different countries responded to and welcomed the Ukrainian refugees fleeing their country because of the unjustified Russian aggression against Ukraine. So I will not repeat the data. I will just say a few words about the particular situation of my country, Poland, who switched overnight from the position of a donor country to the position of the host country, hosting one of the largest Ukrainian refugee population in the world. And yet, no refugee camp has been established in Poland. All the refugees from Ukraine were welcomed in Poland because Poland, sorry? But not refugee camps. Thank you. But because why this happening? Because Polish people, on all Polish society, Polish state, on all the levels of the governance, central, local, and the grassroots activities have opened their houses and they have opened their hearts to Ukrainian people. And we treated from the very beginning the Ukrainian refugees in the very same way as Polish citizens. They have been granted access to all our social system, healthcare system. Ukrainian children gain access to the Polish educational system. And in this regard, I'm particularly happy to see that in the next panel, we will be able to see the mayor of the city of Rzeszów, the city of Rzeszów that has become the gateway and also the very first safe haven for Ukrainian people fleeing their country because of the Russian war of aggression. I think the presence of mayor of the city of Rzeszów, together with the presence of Mr. Władysław Grochowski, who is the European Regional Nansen Award winner, constitutes a kind of a testimony of the fact that Poland has not shied away from being the very first responder on an unprecedented scale to the Ukrainian people fleeing their country because of the war of aggression. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. And we will end this first segment part of the discussion with you. And I would just ask all member states and states applying temporary protection to continue applying this flexibility, allowing Ukrainian refugees to be able to, for those who wish, temporarily go back to Ukraine, maintain this social important connection with Ukraine, as we see from Moldova, Poland, and so many other countries, with that flexibility as long, because we are promoting, of course, inclusion, at the same time maintaining this social connection, which is so important with a country at war. So thank you very much, and I ask the panelists, and thank you for this discussion, and ask the new panelists to join me at the table for the second part of the discussion on the whole of society response.
Stands in solidarity with Ukraine.
Зараз з першого дня ми живемо в хостелі. Це чудовий старовинний будинок. Він мене перше враження справив на мене дивовижне. Моя донька Софія, їй 10 років, вона ходила до школи, тому що тут концентрується увага на психологічний стан дитини і на вміння працювати в колективі.
As soon as we came, we received our temporary protection, and it was really helpful because with this card I can find a job. When I was thinking about new job, I was thinking that only one criteria that I have, this job should be connected with Ukraine.
So we will quickly start again. So if you can take your seats so that we continue the discussion. And as we have been flexible on time, and sorry that we have asked for more time, but as some of our panelists will be leaving or have travel obligations, I will change the order of thank you for being flexible, and have Naja Vallaud-Belkacem, présidente de France Terre d'Asile, de commencer la discussion sur la manière dont la société répond également. Nous avons entendu les représentants des États, de la Commission, mais la société civile est la première également à répondre. Nous avons entendu combien en Pologne, en Moldavie, les citoyens eux-mêmes ont accueilli les personnes parfois dans leur propre maison. Mais une association comme France Terre d'Asile en France est depuis longtemps active pour recevoir et encourager les gouvernements à appliquer la Convention de Genève de la meilleure manière qu'il soit. Madame Naja Vallaud-Belkacem, vous avez la parole.
Merci beaucoup. Puisque la possibilité m'est donnée de parler en français, je parlerai en français. C'était un véritable plaisir d'entendre le panel précédent, je tiens à vous le dire, et merci en particulier, Madame la Commissaire, pour la dimension très pédagogique de votre intervention. Comme vous l'avez dit, tout ce qui a été rendu possible avec l'accueil des Ukrainiens grâce notamment à l'activation de la directive protection temporaire a considérablement changé la donne dans les pays. Il faut vraiment en avoir conscience. Et nous, France Terre d'Asile, qui sommes une association qui accueille, accompagne, héberge les demandeurs d'asile en France depuis plus de 50 ans maintenant, nous avons bien vu la différence, clairement. Nous avons nous-mêmes, évidemment, été à l'œuvre, à l'action très rapidement pour accompagner les pouvoirs publics dans la mise en œuvre de cette directive protection temporaire. Et je veux témoigner du fait qu'à peine une semaine après le déclenchement des hostilités en Ukraine, c'est nous, France Terre d'Asile, qui ouvrions, avec l'appui évidemment des pouvoirs publics, un grand hub, un grand centre en Île-de-France, à Paris, chargé, à côté de Paris, chargé d'accueillir les personnes qui fuyaient l'Ukraine et de faire en sorte qu'elles y rencontrent très rapidement les services sociaux, les associations partenaires pour pouvoir résoudre le plus rapidement possible leurs problèmes d'emploi, leurs problèmes de santé, leurs problèmes de scolarisation des enfants. Et s'agissant de l'hébergement, nous en avons hébergé un très grand nombre et puis nous avons aussi, avec nos intervenants sociaux, accompagné les familles françaises qui s'étaient proposées pour les héberger de façon citoyenne. Et nous continuons à le faire. Je vous raconte là ce qui s'est passé pour l'Île-de-France, où ils sont le plus nombreux à être arrivés, mais nous l'avons fait aussi dans d'autres départements, comme les Hautes-Alpes ou la Manche, et nous continuons cet accompagnement. Et je tiens vraiment à vous dire que tout cela a changé. Tout, la réalité, c'est que quand vous avez à la fois le volontarisme politique de la Commission européenne, de l'Union européenne, le volontarisme politique des États membres, les moyens financiers qui vont avec, eh bien, vous avez aussi un discours médiatique qui change, qui est beaucoup plus bienveillant, qui est beaucoup plus constructif. Vous avez une opinion publique qui est elle-même positive. Et sur les plus de 100 000 Ukrainiens que nous avons accueillis en France, c'est quelques 40 000 d'entre eux qui ont été hébergés par des citoyens. Et donc, cette mobilisation, je pense qu'il faut la prendre évidemment comme un exemple, comme un modèle de ce que nous devrions faire à l'avenir. Alors, France Terre d'Asile est aussi une association de plaidoyer et je veux souligner que pendant que tout cela se passait très bien, nous avons aussi fait en sorte de défendre la situation des étudiants étrangers en Ukraine qui, eux, n'avaient pas exactement les mêmes protections, comme vous le savez. Et je tiens à attirer votre attention sur le fait que ça, c'est un problème, car beaucoup d'entre eux ont été découragés ou mal accueillis, parfois même priés de quitter les lieux quand ils arrivaient sur notre territoire. Donc, à l'avenir, si nous devions à nouveau faire quelque chose comme ça au niveau de l'Union européenne, considérons tous les gens qui fuient un pays de la même façon. Je crois que c'est important. Je voudrais terminer mon propos en vous disant qu'en écoutant la plénière d'hier, en écoutant la première ministre ougandaise évoquer la façon dont son pays accueillait de façon chaleureuse un certain nombre de réfugiés venant des pays voisins africains, je me suis dit que c'était le même type de discours que j'avais entendu en Colombie quand il s'agissait d'accueillir des réfugiés du pays voisin vénézuélien, que c'était le même type de discours que j'entendais en Europe quand il s'agissait d'accueillir des réfugiés du pays voisin, l'Ukraine. En fait, c'est des discours où on parle de frères et de sœurs, des frères et des sœurs. Et je me suis fait la réflexion qu'au fond, il y avait une constante, c'est qu'il semblait plus évident d'accueillir des demandeurs d'asile qui ont une proximité géographique avec nous-mêmes, dans toutes les sociétés, dans toutes les cultures. Alors, la conclusion à en tirer, c'est quoi? Est-ce que c'est de dire aux demandeurs d'asile, mais faites en sorte de fuir dans un pays proche de chez vous? Ceux qui ont une réflexion un peu limitée pourraient avoir cette conclusion-là. Nous ne pouvons pas l'avoir, puisque nous savons que parfois, c'est rationnel et logique d'aller juste à côté de chez soi, parce qu'on pense que ça va être possible de rentrer chez soi quand le conflit sera rapidement terminé. Mais parfois, ça n'est pas possible. Une femme afghane qui quitte l'Afghanistan, elle ne va pas rester en Iran ou au Pakistan, il faut le comprendre, parce que structurellement, elle est en danger. Bon, alors donc, une fois qu'on a compris ça, la solution et ce sur quoi nous devons travailler, c'est quoi? C'est à faire changer les esprits, je crois, des personnes des sociétés d'accueil pour élargir leur notion de proximité. La proximité ne peut pas être juste géographique, elle doit être humaine. La question, c'est comment comment est-ce qu'on redessine cette commune humanité qui fait qu'on ressente de l'empathie, y compris pour des gens qui vivent très loin, qui quittent l'Érythrée, qui quittent l'Éthiopie ou que sais-je, mais qui souffrent humainement et qui cherchent une vie digne. Et ça, c'est une question de récit, de culture, et je pense que nous avons tous un rôle à jouer pour soutenir un récit politique, médiatique, sociétal en ce sens. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much for also widening the debate. And as you have said, most of the refugees actually are seeking protection in the neighboring countries. We have been seeing that, and this is why we are asking all the responsibility sharing for countries like Pakistan, Iran, who have been hosting for more than 40 years Afghan people. But that does not mean that the right to asylum beyond should not be respected. And this is why we are so vigorously fighting against externalization and keeping the right to asylum alive, and making sure at the same time that the first asylum countries are definitely supported, as they are receiving most of the refugees throughout the world, because people go just next door often, as we have seen, for example, in Poland and all the neighboring countries to Ukraine. So thank you very much for this insight. I would like to turn to Marc-Angèle, the Vice President of the European Parliament, to comment on first both the reactions of the many EU member states, the solidarity which has been shown by the European people, and how the European Parliament can accompany, support, show initiative to prolong that response as well.
Yes, thank you very much, Philippe Leclerc, dear Mayor, dear representatives of civil society, and also dear representatives of the private sector, that private sector who takes corporate and social responsibility very important. It's good to meet you, and I'm also happy that some colleagues of the European Parliament are here. Just less than a month in March 2022, less than a month after the unprovoked aggression against Ukraine, the European Parliament, in the person of our President Roberta Metsola, gave the keys of an entire floor of the Station Europe building to a Ukrainian NGO, Promote Ukraine. And this allowed Ukrainian civil society in Brussels to coordinate their activities, to organize demonstrations, to organize press conferences, to help Ukrainian refugees with administrative support, all those who arrived in Belgium. This was a small gesture, but it embodies that for the European Parliament, civil society is not an enemy, but civil society is a very important ally. A lot of things we couldn't do with the support of civil society. The war in Ukraine, like all wars, yields many tragedies, and it was immediately clear to us at this crucial moment that we needed to extend our values of solidarity, unity, and hope for all those Ukrainians who are fighting for these values, because we know that the Ukrainians are fighting for democracy, for fundamental rights, and for the rule of laws. Our values, we share these values. We share the same colors, yellow and blue, but we share our important values. And therefore, I was very happy that the three institutions, the Commission, the Council, and the European Parliament reacted, and they were not divided, and they were united in their reaction. Commissioner Johansson did a great job with the activation of the Temporary Protection Directive, and we are in the Parliament in constant dialogue with Commissioner Johansson, and I really appreciate it very much that since the beginning, she always also raised the issue of human trafficking of women and children, the risk of being exploited in the labor market or sexual exploitation. This was always on the agenda when we had a dialogue with the Commissioner, and this was highly appreciated also by the Parliament. But we also know that in the member states, the local authorities play an important role. And some of our missions of the European Parliament, I was on a mission of the Employment Committee to Poland, and we saw the efforts, of course, of the public institutions and the local institutions, but civil society was amazing. And also the collaboration of Polish civil society with other civil society in other member states, for example, with Germany, when it came to help women who were raped during the war, because unfortunately Russia uses rape as a weapon of war, that they could go to Germany to have abortion, etc. This was very important. And also I see representative of UNAIDS here, that when it was helping helping people to get treatments, helping trans people to get hormonal treatments. All there was a lot of wonderful collaboration between civil society in the neighboring states and also in all our member states. And I'm very heartened about the spirit of our population and of our local authorities, but I'm not surprised because during the conference on the future of Europe, that was a dialogue of 2 years with 900 randomly chosen citizens. And one of the 9 subjects was migration. And I was part of that group of migration. And I knew that our citizens, they want asylum policy and migration policy based on human rights and on solidarity. This was very clear. So I'm not surprised of this reaction that the citizens had at that time. So, and also when we attributed last year the Sakharov Prize to the brave people of Ukraine, we also mentioned, of course, civil society in our discourse. Yes, I mean, we will continue to support the Ukrainian people. And we also had 2 important resolutions. One resolution on specifically on the impact of the war on women, where we were asking the member states to address the specific needs of women and girls in reception centers and to ensure continued access to sexual and reproductive health rights. And we had a resolution also on children and young people, and also to get really proper access to education and health services for all children fleeing war. Having said that, last thing, we are very active also in collaboration with the Ukrainian Parliament. We recently signed a memorandum of understanding with the Ukrainian Parliament. We want to continue with them. We want to exchange lessons learned to support them in their path towards Europe. We have welcomed millions of Ukrainians in our midst in the European Union, and we are ready. It will be a longer process, a difficult process, but it will be a process, and the European Parliament and the Union is there to support Ukraine, and then we will welcome them in the family of the European Union nations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marc-Angel. We are going faster now to go back to a Ukrainian citizen living in Poland, Olamenko, from the foundation of the Institute of Poland and Ukraine, so that you can shed also some light on, again, how in a European member state like Poland, Ukrainian citizens and the refugee-led organization also that are supporting can play an active role today, but also preparing for tomorrow.
Hello, everyone. I'm grateful to be here. It is crucial for us Ukrainians to be at the table, not on the menu when it's coming to the questions about Ukraine and Ukrainian refugees. Before I will talk a bit more about refugee response and local organizations, I would like to ask you a question. So please raise your hand if you have ever felt uncomfortable in your life to give feedback to anyone. And the situation with Ukrainian refugees is 10 times more difficult because they are coming into a new country, they are grateful, they don't know what is happening, and they lost the feeling of safety. So usually, in that moment, Ukrainian-led organizations and refugee-led organizations are the first who are getting to know what are the troubles, what are the challenges, how should we change the system so it would work. So it's kind of a magical bridges which are working both ways, giving direct help to refugees and at the same time addressing issues, advocating the needs, and helping to create a stronger systems and structures for governments. Because we don't want to do it ourselves, right? We want the governments work properly, and for that, they need feedback from us, NGOs, what things are not working. And unfortunately, when it's coming to withdrawal of lots of NGOs from Poland and making the missions of UN agencies smaller, like I would say that those bridges started shaking a bit and some of them got broken because challenges are rising. We are having much more troubles. People from Ukraine are still coming. And at the same time, amount of support which is given to local NGOs, those who are doing the biggest amount of work, is getting less and less and less. So if we want to have this chain, if we want this chain to work, the chain where We are having refugees provided with the support here and now, but also NGOs being able to advocate the needs and create the system which would work. Then we need to support more those local NGOs, which are like on the first line when it's coming to help. So how can you do it? You see here my name and surname. You can find me on a special app which was suggested by the organizers. You can also come to me after the session. We're having lots of NGOs in Poland who need the help, and I will be happy to transfer your contacts to those who will suit your profiles the most. Thank you.
Thank you very much for reminding that indeed support is continuously needed as the situation adapts, but it can perhaps be provided in a different way than the emergency support which has been provided. But in particular, also municipalities which have been at the forefront of the reception of Ukrainians throughout Europe, but in particular in Poland, as we have seen and heard from Jejo. I hope I'm pronouncing a little bit better than before. Mayor, can you again show how much the municipality has been responding and how your Polish citizens in your city are engaged with refugees in the evolving needs of the situation? Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank you and HCR for invitation. It's a great honor to be here in the name of my citizens because, yeah, Rzeszów is important city in this process. We are first major city next to Ukrainian border, and we have seen many tragedies, and we know now how important it is to help, and I think we know how we can help also. Rzeszów is also first city to be awarded the honorable title City Rescuer by President Zelensky as a summary of what we have done in my city, in my region. Because, of course, of the scale of our challenge, and the scale was I think exceptional. And I have to say, we did it, first of all, with our citizens. For example, through our city went 1.5 million refugees. It was big scale of our challenge. We gave them many help, many aid, and it's not easy to create it in city which normally has 200,000 citizens. And at the peak of the crisis, we hosted in our city 100,000 refugees from Ukraine. It is the scale of our challenge. And about this period, this emergency period in this crisis, I have to say three important sentences. First of all, I have to say about how important is local community and local government in this process. Because we have seen that aid started long before any central government decision and actions. We made aid network with our volunteers from the city, with our NGOs, with our private sector, and of course in coordination with, for example, mayors from Ukraine, because especially at the beginning of the war, only mayors can set us what was important, what they need in this time. So this network was very important, and our response was quicker and more accurate than on the national level, especially on the beginning of the war, when for example, border was full. Second thing, I have to say that European solidarity, it's not only political slogan. European solidarity really exists. We have seen thousands of volunteers from all over the Europe, taking refugees from our border into their own houses in all Europe. We received hundreds of trucks with humanitarian aid in our city, and of course to Ukraine, then to Ukraine. So it is a proof of our of European solidarity, and we see still this process. So it's important to mention that European solidarity really exists. And third thing, I think, important role of international organization, international actors like UNHCR, like IOM, like UNICEF. We received big support from this organization. We received knowledge, financial support, organization skills. So it is important, and I would like to thank you, Mr. Philip, and all of you, because we have fantastic staff from UNHCR, IOM, UNICEF, and so on in our city. We have also fantastic staff of many global NGOs in our city. So we see how important it is, and every day we see that. And a few sentences about us. I'm sorry. Maybe one sentence about current period. I would say integration period. We established in our city international integration center. We provide language courses and so on, but we know exactly because we made survey with our refugees. So we know that they are very active on the our local market level. So marketplace and job market, and we know that half of them have work, and we know that 80% are very active on the job market. So I have one example. One of Polish logistics center employed 600 people, but 500 of them are from Ukraine. So they have financially independent, they can support families in Ukraine, for example, and they feel very important also for our society in our city. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And again, a whole of society approach and response, of course, includes the municipalities, as we have seen in Poland. I did not have the pleasure of visiting your city, but Lublin, where we have seen also the work that UNHCR and other UN actors can play to have all civil society approach, irrespective of political parties and so on. And this can also add to the response, as I have seen in Poland. So thank you very much. I would like now to turn to Volkswagen, and as it's very impressive to see how a company like yours is engaged in supporting the response to Ukraine by its own human resources policy, as well as including refugees, and both in the context of Ukraine, but even also all over the world. So thank you for describing and accepting to come to this panel to show how the private sector and your company in particular can contribute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leclerc, for the invitation. Of course, I'm going to do this. Volkswagen, as you know, is a global player, is acting in each and every corner of this world in business. This will be an important point later in my short speech here. And we started to engage ourselves in refugee aid in 2015. This was directly after the Syria crisis and war, and we never stopped this. And what we did in just a few days after the 24th of February, this very bad and black day, that we installed a task force on top of this refugee aid we are doing. A task force, because of course it's Ukraine and all the implementation is super important for our business, but also for the refugee situation. We organized ourselves strictly from beginning. This is very important. All our brands are involved. All the countries around are involved. It's Poland mainly, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Ukraine itself, of course, Germany and other countries. So we have teams in each and every entity we have, in each and every factory we have, each and every sales company we have, looking especially there where we are. This is our philosophy. Wherever we are, we should support. It's not a central thing. It's a local, in the end, a local thing, what happened here with us. So we are doing so till whenever and how long ever it is needed. We will not stop this. It's also a clear statement. We will not stop this. So what did we do? A little bit more concrete. Of course, in the very beginning, we focused on emergency aid. We just need to spend money, donate money to our strategic partner, which is the UNO Flüchtlingshilfe, so UNHCR in Germany. Thank you very much for the very, very trustful cooperation for years, and especially now. This is the first in the beginning. There was like 8.5 million donation within just a couple of months. And 1 point out of this is 2 million coming from the employees. We did 3 campaigns together with the United Nations from our people. 2 million is more than 3 times better or higher than any campaign in our 70 years history. So the people are behind, and we have lots of communication internally on Ukraine. So people are very, very informed what we are doing. They were very transparent in this, not to the outside. This is an exception that I'm sitting here today. We are not impressed with this. We don't want to have the wrong impression of the public, of the people, what we are doing. We're doing it, but we don't talk about too much. Internally, yes. So there's an exception sitting here today. This was the 1 point. Of course, we're supporting also other organizations. Overall, 50 million euros has been spent from Volkswagen directly to the organizations like United Nations, like Red Cross, and 1 or 2 other big players. On top, we are supporting the local organization with cars. We are a mobility group. Yeah, so cars, trucks, buses, whatever we can do, we are doing. And not just in Germany, but also in the other countries I just mentioned. This is not a German thing. It is not a central thing. It's a local activity here, which is so much needed. But not just cars, there's also more. I remember just in Poland, we supported via Volkswagen Polska, the Red Cross in Poland with a warehouse. Also this we can do as a company. Warehouse is needed by the Red Cross for all their logistics. And they have been overwhelmingly happy to get this support. And in other countries, the Czech government near Prague came to us. We need help in language. Can you do anything? Yes, we did. We have a school, an own school. We had language courses like for 3,000 children and young people, also adults, within the first 6 months to learn Czech language. It's so important. Otherwise, you will never land where you are. So this is important to do. And there's so much more I can't. Otherwise, I'm out of the time. So learning, that's why I want to get this point. Learning. 1, please, public sector, do it. Take responsibility. Take it and really do it. The second, very, very clear, use your own power wherever you are. I think it's quite logic. Wherever you are, whatever you can offer, try to help and cooperate with local stakeholders, local governments, local organizations. Do that. But do it also in the meaning of, and my last sentence, that's maybe the most important one, refugee aid is not a sprint. It's a long distance run. I would even say it's a marathon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and for being so concrete as well. But what your motto is, wir machen das. It reminds me, wir schaffen das. There are many ways in which companies can respond, but it's also important, and that's why we invited you. You want to be modest and don't talk about it and doing it, but it's important that other companies, know that it is possible, that it's a marathon, as you have said, so they should engage with the necessary means. But again, it's very important what you have said, that it can be concretely done. And je tourne vers BNP Paribas, la Fondation, pour savoir également, depuis 2015, votre fondation s'est engagée à soutenir les réfugiés, et notamment leur inclusion. Et peut-être pourriez-vous également partager avec l'audience la manière dans laquelle une fondation comme la vôtre sert à l'inclusion des réfugiés. Merci.
Merci à vous. Et c'est vrai que ce n'était pas prévu, mais j'ai envie de reprendre les mots que j'ai entendus tout à l'heure qui m'ont frappé, les mots de Madame Johansson de la Commission européenne. Nous avons besoin de faire des choses extraordinaires. Et c'est vrai que dans un monde qui parfois est extraordinaire, nous avons non seulement besoin, mais nous devons faire ces choses extraordinaires. Et nous pouvons le faire, nous, le secteur privé. On vient de l'entendre par la voix de Volkswagen. Et je pense que ces coalitions d'entreprises sont clés aujourd'hui. Et je voudrais ici d'abord remercier le Forum des réfugiés, remercier le HCR pour donner cette voix, cette expression du secteur privé qui, comme vous l'avez dit, est avant tout une expression modeste et humble, mais en même temps proactive, parce que je pense que nous avons cette responsabilité. Nous devons faire des choses extraordinaires. J'ai prévu aussi ici de témoigner, comme vous l'avez dit, merci Philippe Leclerc, des engagements du groupe BNP Paribas en faveur des réfugiés ukrainiens, mais aussi de l'ensemble des réfugiés, d'où qu'ils viennent, et surtout des personnes vulnérables, et je pense notamment aux femmes qui sont de plus importantes à migrer. Nous nous engageons ici à poursuivre nos actions et à les renforcer surtout. Et tout d'abord, un bref rappel, cet engagement est le fait d'une volonté exprimée par la Direction générale depuis 2015, mais aussi, comme c'est le cas visiblement aussi chez Volkswagen, par les collaborateurs. Et ça, c'est une force, une mobilisation incroyable. Et tout cela s'inscrit dans un programme réfugié qui s'exprime de la façon suivante. Un programme dans 11 pays européens. Un soutien à 40 associations et ONG que nous accompagnons chaque année. Un fléchage dans chaque pays vers l'apprentissage de la langue d'accueil et l'insertion professionnelle. Un engagement inscrit dans la durée, le marathon toujours, décidément nous parlons le même langage, un montant de 17 millions d'euros depuis 2015. Plus de 23 000 réfugiés au total en Europe ont pu bénéficier en 2021 de l'accompagnement de BNP Paribas. Concernant l'Ukraine, je voudrais signaler que c'est justement grâce à cette culture du groupe, parce que je parle vraiment d'une culture d'entreprise du groupe dédiée aux réfugiés, c'est grâce à cette culture que nous avons pu certainement accueillir un grand nombre de réfugiés dans nos murs et puis surtout les accompagner à 3 niveaux. Le niveau de la banque, le niveau du mécénat et le niveau des collaborateurs. Au niveau philanthropique, au niveau mécénat, avec en 2022 un montant de 18 millions d'euros extraordinaires accordés aux ONG. Et je voudrais citer à nouveau le HCR, France Terre d'Asile, la Croix-Rouge, mais aussi toutes les petites associations en Pologne que je ne peux pas citer, mais que nous avons accompagnées. Et grâce à la force d'un réseau structuré de 12 fondations, c'est ainsi que nous avons pu donc agir pour les réfugiés ukrainiens. Très rapidement, au niveau de la banque, parce que c'est vrai que ouvrir un compte bancaire, c'est déjà un petit peu de liberté. C'est très important. 10 000 comptes ont été ouverts en France, mais aussi via le réseau Nickel qui est présent en Espagne, au Portugal, en Belgique. Et nous avons mené aussi d'autres actions. Par exemple, en Pologne, puisque nous parlons de la Pologne ce matin, 140 000 Ukrainiens ont ouvert un compte en Pologne. En Italie, nous avons aidé Per Micro qui permet le microcrédit fléché vers les femmes réfugiées ukrainiennes. C'est très, très important, le microcrédit. C'est aussi le début de la liberté. Au Luxembourg, en Belgique, nous avons par exemple des associations qui aident les réfugiés à se lancer dans l'entrepreneuriat. Ça aussi, c'est une clé pour réussir. Et je voudrais souligner donc cette troisième force dont je parlais, la mobilisation des citoyens qui sont des collaborateurs aussi, on ne peut pas les différencier. C'est un levier qui permet, comme vous l'avez dit, de faire ces choses extraordinaires, que d'arriver à la frontière de la Pologne et de l'Ukraine pour apporter des médicaments, des jouets. Mais c'est aussi le fonds urgence et développement que nous sommes fiers de porter, avec près de 2 millions d'euros là aussi, abondés par le groupe et qui permettent justement aux collaborateurs d'exprimer leur générosité. Je voudrais donc redire ici ce matin que l'accès au compte bancaire, l'inclusion, l'accompagnement vers l'entrepreneuriat, mais aussi le recrutement avec 33 Ukrainiens que nous avons embauchés en 2022 et redire aussi, on fera des études en 2024 là-dessus, à quel point accueillir des réfugiés dans une entreprise, c'est plus de performance, plus d'innovation, c'est aussi plus d'entraide et de courage qui sont les valeurs que nous devons défendre aussi dans les entreprises. Et c'est vrai qu'effectivement, on n'insiste pas assez sur ces nouvelles positives. La diversité, les réfugiés dans l'entreprise, c'est un bénéfice pour tous. Et c'est pour cela que je termine par cette chose qui a été très, très bien dite hier, ce mot qui a été prononcé à plusieurs reprises au prix Nansen, c'est le mot espoir. Nous voulons aussi nous engager ce matin à créer de l'espoir. Comme l'a dit France Terre d'Asile, nous voulons changer le regard sur les réfugiés. Nous voulons changer les récits, changer le narratif et créer plus de coalitions. Merci à vous tous.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Giordano.
Merci à vous.
I think we have a lot of reasons to indeed believe in that hope, very concrete ones, and that's very important. And I'm glad that we have heard all these voices from state, the Commission, refugees, of course, themselves, the civil society, including very much the private sector. So I will not, well, we will first give the floor to the room while attempting to close in 5 minutes. So I would like to ask for, I think, the ILO Director of Europe, Beate Andres, to ask or to the question or to make a comment. Yes, as you like. Yes, please, that will be the easiest.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for this opportunity. Given the time, I'll probably share with you a few remarks that we have prepared in advance, but just to highlight and underscore here a couple of recurring words that have surfaced during the conversation this morning: the centrality of people, the centrality of offering them employment opportunities, the centrality of upgrading their skills when possible. And that's something that we've been doing quite consistently across the various opportunities we had to interact with Ukrainians in this crisis. The portability of social security benefits, for example, when you go back to Ukraine, the social security benefits accumulated across Europe or across our countries Ukrainian workers should be able to bring them back to their own country to facilitate the socioeconomic integration. If they have been upgraded in terms of skills, in terms of new opportunities they had to work across Europe, again, the portability of the skills acquired connects very much to what you have said from the work that Volkswagen is doing. Some of these workers have been offered an opportunity to upgrade their skills, so they should go back to their country with their skills, but also with an opportunity to demonstrate that they have acquired other skills. Last point is partnerships. I think we have said it all. I mean, we have been working primarily through trade unions, through workers' organizations, but also through employers in neighboring countries inside Ukraine, and we will continue to do that. So our focus, obviously, as ILO, is in ensuring that workers, they have an opportunity to continue to exercise their profession. And again, echoing what the Commissioner, the EU Commissioner has said today, the issue of trafficking, the issue of protecting people when they are outside the country or where they are in a situation of fragility. So we've been working quite closely with UNHCR, with IOM, in terms of combating trafficking. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And as you mentioned, the whole of society approach means also additional actors like the trade unions who are not today with us, but who should also be associated. And there are some initiatives there. I think UNDP is also on the last speaker. Yes, please.
Thank you, Monsieur Leclerc, and UNHCR especially for convening this session, and the distinguished panelists for sharing your generous and very innovative experiences. And I really enjoyed especially a lot of the reflections on the journey ahead. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as a UN Development Agency, UNDP is highly committed to support the Regional Refugee Response Plan for Ukraine in partnership with UNHCR. Our priority is to work with host governments, and in this case, we are working with Moldova, Georgia, and Belarus as partners on economic empowerment of refugees and promoting social cohesion, engaging with civil society, the private sector, and diaspora communities. Since last year, our work with UNHCR and partners have reached approximately 100,000 refugees being hosted in over 100 communities. Through our new UNDP institutional pledge at this Global Refugee Forum, we welcome expanding our cooperation with you to invest in solidarity in development solutions so that local communities, refugees, IDPs, and returnees not only recover but can thrive together. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. And to respect the rights of the interpreters, a last word from the Republic of Slovenia. Very fast, please. Thank you.
24th of February 2022 was not a big shock only for Ukrainians, but also for Slovenians. The next day, the first displaced people from Ukraine also arrived to Slovenia. The wave from solidarity from Slovenian was enormous. We immediately started collecting most urgent items and offering free housing. On 10 of March 2022, Slovenia introduced temporary protection for Ukrainian citizens. To the date, Slovenia has granted more than 9,000 temporary protection status to citizens of Ukraine. In many cases, we also granted international protection status. Slovenian Government Office for the Support and Integration of Migrants ensures that persons with temporary protection enjoy adequate housing. If staying at private address, they receive a cash allowance for accommodation costs in case they have no means of subsistence on their own. Beneficiaries of temporary protection are entitled to financial support, child benefits, and reduced kindergarten fees, all under the same conditions as Slovene citizens. Ukrainian children are entitled to additional learning and language assistance, enabling easier integration and involvement in learning process in national education system, while more and more adults are entering into labor market. Slovenia will prolong temporary protection for citizens of Ukraine until March 2025 and will continue to offer all needed support until their safe home to Ukraine.
Thank you very much from the sunny side of the Alps. Thank you, Republic. I want to close. We thank you for, again, I think a rich discussion. Of course, it's frustrating because we have so much that we would like to continue discuss, but we hope that this has enabled these discussions to continue with many of you in Geneva, but in all over Europe, as well as beyond. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.